Okay. I think everyone in this room would have heard about the National Disability Insurance Scheme. We've been very fortunate in this part of the world to be included in the study areas, and also the national headquarters is based in Geelong, although I saw a for sale sign.
No, that's the office space upstairs.
Okay, they're still in town. I'd like to welcome Strachan.
Strachan, yes.
How do you spell it?
Strachan.
Strachan and
Trudy Knoll.
Trudy Knoll. They're all yours.
Is this going to work? Got the clicker? Okay. We thank you all for staying, because we know that Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock to present is not the best time. So we do hope that we actually are able to give you some information that will help you. We in Barwon here have been very lucky. Trudy and myself, we started work with the NDIS on the 20th of May 2013, and so we've been with it from the very beginning. So we've seen lots and lots of changes. So what we'll be presenting today is basically some general information that you need to know about it, and how the scheme works. And then Trudy's actually going to be presenting a participant plan to give you an idea of how things will look in the future. And if you need any more information about the rollout, you would probably be aware that the government signed all the papers September, maybe I think it was end of September, and on our website is a really good representation of how it's going to be rolling out across Victoria and then across New South Wales. I think this is an Australia, a national conference. Yep. Yeah. So at the moment the agreements are signed for Victoria and New South Wales, so exactly how it's going to roll out over the next 3 years are there. Queensland's just come on board. We start in Townsville, Charters Towers and Palm Island on 1st of July next year. We start planning for those people between 1st of January, so it's really happening. Okay, so the scheme principles. The National Disability Insurance Agency, NDIA, administers the National Disability Insurance Scheme. So the scheme is the government legislation that gives us the right to do it. Our job is to actually operationalise it, to bring it home, to make sure that supports, etc., put in for people that have a disability. So the role of the NDIA is to deliver the NDIS, and it's to ensure the financial sustainability of this scheme. So with that, we're looking at, everyone is aware that the scheme is for the long term, it's for the life of a participant. And so a part of the role that we have, particularly during trial, etc., has been to look at that long-term sustainability. We want this to be around forever. Another thing that we sort of part of our role is to develop and enhance the disability sector. So to actually work with the disability sector to ensure that providers are up to speed, to work with families, with ourselves, to deliver the type of supports, etc., that families and participants require. Also to build community awareness of disability, and to collect, analyse and exchange data about the disability and support, so that we can see what do participants really require, and also to undertake research relating to disability and support, so that we can make sure that what we're funding is the right sort of things, that the therapies that we're funding are the best therapies for whatever the condition is, whatever the disability is. And you can see there that, as well as emphasising that people with disability have the same right as anybody else in the community to maximise their potential, to realise their dreams and their aspirations. And also the sustainability links to the fact that people with disability and their family and carers, they should have certainty in what they will receive and the care and support that they actually need. Their right to exercise choice and control in the pursuit of those dreams and the delivery of their supports. And we'll talk more about that as we go through. And really importantly, Trudy and I work in the children's. I'm Assistant Director in Children's, so 0 to 14, and Trudy's Acting Assistant Director in the children's. And the role of families is really, really significant, and it has to be absolutely and utterly acknowledged and respected. Did it change? Oh, yeah. Importantly to remember and realise is that it's actually, it is an insurance model, it's an insurance approach. So there's 3 key pillars that underpin the NDIS design. So we have that insurance approach, and the insurance approach looks at supporting the economic and social participation of participants, To mobilise funding for early intervention. We know in the area of children in particular that if we can get the supports, etc., that they need early on, if we can have better outcomes for the participant, for the child, but not only that, we can have better outcomes for the families, the siblings, the parents, and other support networks that the participant has. We estimate, and because it's insurance model, we estimate and manage the resource allocation based on managing the long-term costs across the life of the participant. Choice and control is our second pillar, and that's where participants have choice over their supports. Someone laughed just then. It's really changing. We can really tell you that in Barwon it has changed so much. And I've worked in the early childhood sector for like 20-something years, and it's really great to see that change. And we'll talk a bit more about how choice and control is actually happening. But it does come after reasonable and necessary. So the planner's responsibility is to ensure that the supports that are put into a plan are reasonable and necessary, that they're nothing that another Australian family wouldn't provide for their child. It's the disability component, the cost of disability, that we fund. Participants determine how much control they want over the management of their funding, their supports and their providers. So I'm not sure if anyone's been on the website, but some participants, they want to actually control the funding that comes in. They have their budget from NDIA, and then they want to actually have control over that. They want to provide their providers. They want to choose their providers. They employ their providers. They take all the risks in that when they do that. You've got other people, families and participants who can manage their own affairs. They want to maybe work towards that, or they want somebody else to do that for them. So we can put into a plan management. So that means there's some support to pay those bills. The third way to do it, and I have to admit that in the children's space, a lot of families do this, it's agency managed. So when you self-manage, you have to pay the provider, then you get reimbursed through NDIA, and there's a computer system that does all that, bank transfers, etc. Agency managed is where you go and see the provider provides the service in your home or wherever else, and then they claim through NDIA, so they get paid afterwards. And that's one of the biggest changes for providers, is that now, rather than getting block funding from the government, etc., they actually have to provide the service and then they get paid after that. So providers have had to make a lot of changes as to the way that they do their business, etc., the way they organise themselves. The scheme also gives effect to certain obligations under the Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disability, and this includes respecting them for their worth, their dignity, and to live free from abuse, neglect and exploitation. Okay. We also link to mainstream and community support. So the people are supported to access and coordinate their community and to also access their funded supports. So who is the scheme there for? There is an access process that people need to go through to gain eligibility, but the scheme is there for people who for a person who has a permanent disability, which can have a significant impact on their ability to participate in the community and will mean that they need ongoing support. So it's a lifelong lifelong disability. So that's actually where Rett syndrome fits in. It's actually, you don't have to jump through too many hoops to come in under Rett syndrome, because that is, we all know, that's a significant disability that impacts just so considerably on physical functioning, etc. And also it is a lifelong disability. Okay, there's another side of it as well, which is early intervention. So in the children's space, for children under 6, they can come in under early intervention. They don't necessarily have to have a diagnosis of a disability. A lot of children early on are diagnosed with global developmental delay. To see how they're going to go, if we get the supports into them, how are they going to go? Do they actually really have an intellectual disability or not? So they can come in under early intervention. We provide all the supports, the intense support that they need, etc. And then they may not need the scheme, after they go to school. So they come in under early intervention. Other disabilities can come in under early intervention, things like multiple sclerosis. They may need lots of intense support early, and then things plateau for a while. So we're looking at getting the supports in that are necessary so that we can reduce the long-term need for supports further down the track. And you can imagine people will have peaks and troughs over a lifetime. When a child is in the early years, a lot of intense supports goes in there, particularly to sustain families. Then they go off to school and they're at school all the time, so the supports that they need may be reduced. And then as they leave school, going into education, employment, then they may have a need. So we realise, and we see already after 3 years here in Barwon, that you can see already the funding, how it changes over time. Okay, so what actually happens? How do you actually, once you've been made eligible, what happens next? So each participant will have an individual plan. So you come into NDIA, well at the moment you come into us, but who knows what the future will look like, you know, depending upon the needs. It might be a telephone call, who knows, no telephone conversation, so you don't have to come in. Participants and families have said that they don't all want to come in to actually meet with us. They're happy to do it over the phone. So it'd be a long conversation over the phone, but you know, that can happen. So together with the planner, an individual plan is developed, and it consists of the individual goals and aspirations. So in the space of young children, often it's the family that are talking on behalf of the child. And so it's, what do you want? And it could be something like, we want to be able to have the ability to take our child out with everybody else in the family, to go to the shops or to go to travel away or whatever. And so that could be the overall goal that you have. And then under that, it may mean that there's car modifications needed for wheelchairs, etc., or may need a wheelchair to do it. Having worked in the sector for so long, that is one of the big changes, that we have been putting a lot of funding into home modifications, vehicle modifications, etc., and more timely. It's not perfect yet, by the way, but it's much, much better than the 3, 4, 5 years that we've heard about under SWEP. So we look at those individual goals and aspirations. That could be to toileting, dressing, to go to kinder or whatever. So more about life goals there. The plan, we also in our planning conversation have a look about what is the support network that a family has, what the participant has wrapped around them, friends, family, extended family. And also we look at what community supports are in there. Where's the child going? To kinder, to childcare, school, guides, scouts, dance. There's a special dance class for children with Down syndrome, dance or whatever. So we look at what community activities are people participating in and what would they like to participate in as well. And then also we look at then what funding supports are needed. So what needs to be funded through this scheme so that we can work towards achieving those goals. Types of funded supports. Most participants will have a plan that's got a blend of informal supports, their community support, going off to school. NDIA doesn't cover that, but it's a community. So your plan will recognise that, sort of the Education Department of Victoria is responsible for ensuring that that goal is met or assisting with achieving that goal. Supports that are funded must directly relate to the goals and aspirations that are in the plan, and they must be reasonable and necessary. So when a planner looks at that, I was just saying, we've just come back from straight from one presentation to the other, to here to see you guys now. And with that, we often use the analogy of that, we provide what is necessary. We provide the Mazda, not the Audi or the BMW. It's what is really needed. Because you can imagine that we have to look, to achieve that long-term sustainability, we have to look at what costs are going in there. But it has to be able to meet the needs of the participant. It has to foster greater independence, social and economic participation. So looking at how can you get out into the community, and that's where funding, one of the children that I've worked with, we've funded the vehicle modifications to the family car, or the family van, so they can actually get the child into the van with everybody and everybody goes out on the same activity. And that's directly related to the family goal that they want their daughter to be included in everything that the family does. They don't want their child left at home with a support worker or a respite worker so that they can go out. It has to be evidence-based. There being that we don't fund therapies that have no evidence. There's a lot of weird and wonderful things out there for different sort of disabilities and going to cure and things like that. There has to be an evidence base to the therapies that we will fund. And also, we also use the lived experience. So ABA, Applied Behaviour Analysis for Children with Autism, is a good one to use there. The evidence is there that it works for some children, a small group of children, but there's not a lot of, it's very hard to work out of 100 children who's actually going to benefit from a $50,000 years program type thing. But where we have families that have come in and they've actually been using it, for 12 months and there's really great outcomes, well then we will look at that, because that's giving us an evidence to a base to base our decisions on. It has to also represent value for money, and that goes back to, we'll provide the Mazda, not the BMW, and we have to look at, is there other ways that it could have been provided first. So choice and control over the funding, it comes after the reasonable and necessary. So it's the planner who works with you that actually makes that final decision about what will be in a plan. And it's about managing those expectations. I know when the scheme started, a lot of families came in with their wish lists for trampolines and iPads and swing sets and all sorts of stuff. We don't fund anything that a typical Australian family would fund for their child. And it has to be related to the goals and aspirations. Very different to the Better Start funding. There's more guidelines about it, about what we can and cannot fund. And a part of the learnings and managing expectations is working with providers to make sure they understand what's reasonable for them to submit to us and to support families to understand that reasonable and necessary. So when we're looking at what sort of things do we fund, we will fund things like the support workers. So you can see here we've got 3 categories. We define the supports that we fund under core, and core means those things that the person is going to require for their lifetime. It may be that an example for a child is a child going off to school, mum and dad are both working, but because the child has a disability, mum can't go back to work because she has to get the child up every morning, get them dressed, and that takes 2 hours. A typical child will get up and get dressed, maybe not a preppy, but once you get a 10-year-old, etc., they can usually get up and get dressed, and the whole family gets dressed together, and we all go out the door together. But it may be that we would put a support worker in there to help the family to get that child ready so mum can go back to work. So, and personal care for sort of adults who maybe have a quadriplegia or paraplegia or whatever. They're going to need that support worker to help them get out of bed, dressed every morning, showered, etc. Then they might go off to work or to day programs or whatever. But we know that their core is, they're always going to need that support. Then we have capacity building, and that's where really the therapies come into it. Your OT, your speech. It's about building the capacity of the child, their family, to help them maximise their best, to reach their potential, whatever that may be, but to give them that opportunity to achieve that. So because NDIS covers people from 0 to 65, you can see there that building capacity is also things about getting the support that you need to get a job, the support that you might need to get your licence, etc. About increased social and community activities. So what do you need to be able to get out and about into the community? Improving relationships, like, we all know how good it is to get out and about. We've got our friendship network. So what do we need to allow those opportunities for people with disabilities to occur? Then the other area, the third area there, is capital. So that's what we call assistive technology. So assistive technology is a really wide umbrella. That includes things as simple from adaptations to cuddlery, etc., so that somebody can feed themselves. Even my background's OT, so even the dressing sticks and things that we used to use to help people. So right through to the really complicated technologies of communication devices, so that people can have an opportunity to communicate. In their fits wheelchairs, and the equipment that you need to maybe access your bathroom. The vehicle modifications I've talked about before, and the home modifications. So home modifications, as you can understand, it might be that need bathroom renovations or access into the home. So they're just generally the types of things that we would fund. You can see there that there's actually 14 what we call support categories. And they relate to what we call a budget. And the budgets allow flexibility. Sometimes we'll write it as a stated support. It might be that it has to be spent on therapies, but it would also, the opportunity is there to have some flexibility. So your greatest need at the moment might be for more respite so that you can attend a family function without children or whatever. You can use your budget with that flexibility. You still have to use it to achieve the goals that are in the plan, but it's not as rigid as some of the systems have been before. So those 14 things, you end up with a budget that allows you to use them. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Trudy now, who's going to talk a little bit more in detail about the planning and what a plan looks like.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is just run you through how the plan looks, so you have a bit of an idea of how we formulate a plan and put it together. So basically, if we go back one, it should be, no, that one's not there. Is there one there, Di? Okay, so a part of the planning process when you're meeting with or talking with a planner is talking about, like Di said, about your goals and aspirations, working around what is important to you. So in part of those conversations, obviously we gather lots of information, background information about the person. So where a person lives, who they live with, and people in the life who support that person, because that's always really important, and then the daily life. So they will be talking about if a child, in a child's case, where they go to school, whether they do anything else in their week, whether they do any sport, if they have any other friendships, all of those things will be like a background information that sets the scene for the planning. And all that information is gathered when you meet or talk with a planner. The next part of the planning process is getting those goals and aspirations down. So it's either coming to the planning appointment with those goals established with what you want. Some people come with them ready, some come and then we work through those with what is most important. So the main words are my goal for daily living. So in the first one there, I would like to get better at managing and organising myself in the mornings, as this will make me feel better for the rest of the day. Then the next blue part there, during this plan I want to learn to be able to follow a routine in the mornings without much help from my mum. So basically the first part may be a bit of a longer term goal, could be 12 months, could be longer, and then the second part are the things that in a 12-month period, because most plans will go for a 12-month span, then they're the aspects that then would be worked on to get to achieve that longer term goal. Another part is in regard to the supports. So this is where we list who will provide the support and then the types of the support. So when you're informal supports, as Di said, that's your family, your friends, other people that are in your life. And then with the services and community groups, these are things like GP, paediatrician, school, workplace, whatever it is, they'll be listed there as your mainstream and community supports. This part at the end, now this is where it gets to the reasonable and necessary supports. So this part is, as Di talked about before, there's 14 categories for the different types of supports. As a planner, you look at the informal supports first, then the mainstream supports for a person, then you go to what NDIS will fund. So part of this particular one, it comes in what we call a budget. So you get a certain amount of money per budget that can be spent on those particular things. So in this particular case, it's in the improved daily living skills budget. They are numbered 1 through to 4. So this is number 4. It's how the supports will be paid. So that's where Di talked about whether things are self-managed, whether you're having an agency provider assist with getting these bills paid, or whether you're using your agency they will pay the services directly. And then the date, obviously, of when you can use, so then you've got your 12-month span of your funding, so that tells you when it will run out and when it starts. So basically then in the descriptor where it says purpose of support, this then talks about the actual hours, so the nitty-gritty of what you want to achieve out of that particular budget. So in this one, Amy will receive 12 hourly sessions of occupational therapy to support independence in self-care and organisational skills. And this support's to include a functional assessment, therapy program, resource development, recommendations for family to implement in the home, community and liaising with other professionals involved. It's to include 3 times staggered progress reports, reporting to include outcomes of functional improvement in relation to goals and objectives, any further functional goals, recommended strategies and clinical justification for further therapy to be provided in final standardised assessment report prior to plan review. So I know that's all very wordy, but that part of it then explains to the provider what NDIA are expecting to get back from spending that money. So that ensures that participant is getting what they're entitled to get there. The next part of it is Amy will receive 12 hourly sessions of speech therapy to develop expressive, receptive and pragmatic language skills. I won't read the next bit, it's pretty similar to the other one. But then each budget will list the particular supports that are in the plan. That's probably enough on planning, I think. So I think what we'll do is questions. I think it's probably, if anyone's got any questions, we're happy to answer them.
Given the fact that we've sort of cut it a little bit shorter for you guys, that's why I thought it's probably more important that we actually answer any questions that you have. One of the changes has been, before we go to questions, is much greater accountability now on providers. It's very much outcomes focused. And so the reporting requirements is much greater than what it has been in the past. So questions, I saw everybody's got questions. How do you do questions?
Let's start off here.
So here.
Has South Australia joined it? And if not, why not?
Okay, South Australia's joined. South Australia's been going since the very beginning. Part of being in the trials for the 3 years is that they've been actually trialling different ways to know how they should roll it out full scheme. So South Australia has been doing the whole of South Australia, but the first year was for children 0 to 3, and now it's up to I think about 7. But what they're doing is they're seeing what implications, how does it work when we look across a whole state. What impacts it's having on providers, what about the rural and remoteness of South Australia, what about the Indigenous communities, etc. Barwon here, we probably had the greatest challenge because we had to bring every single person that was known with a disability in the first 12 months, 0 to 65. And we're bound here at the moment by 4 LGAs, and that's what that contain the boundaries. And we're trying, how does it work with every single person comes in, what impact does it have on participants, what impact does it have on providers. Tasmania was doing, and they started at the very beginning, they were doing 15 to 24, and the whole of Tasmania, and a different sort of a model. So they were looking at, okay, what's necessary when you've got a child who is leaving school, going out into, where will they go for housing, employment, etc. The other one that came online straight away was Hunter in New South Wales. They did the same as us, but they had something like 200 people to bring in the first year. So then last year, WA come on board, and they're doing 0 to 65, but they're doing a program that's alongside a WA program as a part of an evaluation. Who else is on board now? ACT. Everybody in ACT has come on board last year, and that's because obviously it's a very small contained area, ACT. Yeah. So did that answer your question?
Yes.
Great.
Short questions, please.
How do you treat existing funding?
Okay, existing funding. That depends upon the bilateral agreement with the state governments. Okay, and that's all worked out in these bilateral agreements between the Commonwealth Government and the states. Things like the Better Start funding, that goes up to 7, as you know. When we hit the approve button on the plan, we're then responsible for all costs. So no one has to worry about that behind the scenes type funding. What if you've already got existing funding? Once we hit that button, the NDIA is responsible for all the funding after that.
But do you accept the level of funding in an individual case?
There's no capping of funding. It's individual plans and it's individual needs. Everybody's support network, goals, functioning is different. So no, there's not, not like the disability support work down here in Victoria where here's your bucket of money, that's it. It's based on the needs. Like I funded wheelchairs for, you know, $800 up to $10,000. It depends on the needs. And that's some of the criticism that we had in the early days down here is that, particularly in the children's space, no two plans are the same. You know, not everybody doesn't have, you know, 15 hours of OT, 15 hours of speech. It's done on the needs of the child, in this case children, the outcomes that are achieved and what are the needs.
Yep.
So.
Right at the back there, next to the cameraman. Yeah.
My question's about respite.
Yeah.
What I've heard is NDIA doesn't like the term respite, and at the moment, you know, if you're caring for a young adult and you receive a little bit of respite, you know, a couple of days, a month or whatever, that's block funded, how's NDIA going to sort of cover that?
How do we do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, many different ways. We don't use the word respite, you're right, but you might find out that we actually do use that in our conversations because it's a thing that everybody understands. The focus of NDIA is about building capacity, and so we consider that we might put into a plan, a young adult, whatever, that, you know, they've got 4 hours of community participation that can be used anytime. You might decide that they're going to go to a program on a Saturday morning for 4 hours. We would consider that's giving a break to the carers. In the children's space, so for people that are caring for young children, we do look at that very, very intensely and strongly about what we need to put in to sustain those supports. So it might be that we work out that over a year you've got 200 hours of sustaining informal supports, and different language is put into this, and how you use that 200 hours is up to you. You don't lose your hours if you don't use them per week or per month. It's that flexibility that we need. We also, the reason that we don't use respite is because we expect greater from the support workers that provide that sort of support. So when a support worker, gone are the days where the support worker, and this is a real life description from one of the parents that I worked with, you know, like the support worker used to come in on a Saturday night, sit there, put the TV on, put her feet up, and the kids were running riot in the house, but they were safe, you know, and that sort of stuff. We now expect support workers to help work with the children. So if there's an OT program going on or there's a certain way to feed a child, we're expecting the therapist to work with support workers so they know what to do, that they're building the capacity of the person. So definitely it's the use of the word respite that's been a little bit challenging at times, but very much do we look at sustaining informal supports. In the children's space, I know that I've done this and Trudy's done it as well, is that, you know, we've put in some supports so to allow a family to be able to go to after school sports or whatever with a sibling. You know, that they can't go and they're not spending very much time with the siblings because all their time and energy is going into caring for the child with the disability. So we're putting in a worker, which would have been called respite in the olden days, so that frees the family to go up. So sustained parental relationships as well as to look after the siblings.
That sounds more like an in-home respite.
Yeah.
What about for centre-based?
Yeah, definitely. You can, yeah. So that's where that community access I talked about originally. So you can have centre-based that is for a few hours, like on a Saturday or Sunday. Depending upon needs, we do put overnight supports in so that the participant can go out of the home and, you know, have 1 or 2 nights. There is some guidelines about how we do that. Yeah, but it definitely does happen. Definitely does.
Vicky?
Is the information that you put up there on those slides
Yeah.
available on the website? And secondly, I've heard that there's a planning book, and can we get a copy of it?
Okay, things are changing greatly at the moment as we gear up for full scheme rollout. So there is a pre-planning book that is sent to families. We don't sort of send them out willy-nilly at the moment because they're changing all the time. But all the information that we're talking about, you know, how much, there's no how much, what sort of supports we will fund, how to go about it, it's all on the website. If you go on the website, you'll see that across the homepage there's about the NDIS, there's about for participants, what you need to do, what to expect, what does the planning conversation, you know, cover. There's all the information about providers. So if you go on and have a look at that one, you'll find out what gets funded. Yeah, there's so much on the website.
And once you get your appointment time to meet with a planner or talk on the phone, once that's been established, that information gets sent to the family or to the
So I
participant.
think that most of the people in this room would be able to write a plan if given some examples.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So that's and we're actually, yeah, that's one of the learnings. And so we're looking at how can we develop it. The planning workbook, it actually goes through what we've already said. What are your goals? Who are your informal supports? Who are your mainstream supports? And then what do you think you might need to support you? What are the barriers? And then that gets put together by the planner. So some of the plans, like you just said, some people come with really fully documented. Just because we know how much it's changing, can't say anything extra about that.
I know, but if you gave me the planning book, I could probably write that.
Yeah, and
Discussion.
it's the discussion that you have, and then to look at the reasonable and necessary, the value for money that we have to apply. But very much led by the participant and by the family is what we want. It's just that I know what changes are occurring, but they're not announced yet, so I can't give you any more information on that. Sorry.
Sue?
I'd like to know if the hen program's going to be covered.
It is. It is.
Completely.
We fund all the equipment, the syringes, the pumps, everything like that, and we also fund the supplement, the food.
All right, last question, Kim. Thanks. You.
Yeah, just quickly, that if the therapy stuff's outcome based,
Yeah.
say you've got 12 hours of physio to get your child walking and you don't achieve walking in that time frame, but that's keeping scoliosis at bay or whatever, because you have to write your goal that way. Does it just get cut so you can't have it next year?
No, it's not a needs. There's in the early years, so in children, there's a lot of therapy goes in, so that. But when people get older and they plateau, etc., and in your case there where you need the physio to do the assessment, to develop a plan, that's where we link it to the support provider, the support worker as well, that they would be trained to also do that. So the child's getting that, or the participant is getting that all the time. But so we factor in reviews. The next year you probably need the same thing, yeah. So that's every plan is. If you don't use something this year, it's not the use it or you lose it, which used to be the focus of the past. It's about having the need for it, there. And there, the goal may be to reduce, to prevent or to minimise the scoliosis. Definitely, that could be the overall goal, so that you could be, you can be properly supported in your wheelchair, sort of transferred, etc. Yeah. Okay. We're sorry.
All right, definitely the last question. Oh no.
I don't have a question, more of a statement, and I just wanted to say that when you're doing up your plan and you meet with the planner, you agree on, my child wants to do less hand to mouth, pull herself up, for example. Ultimately, at the end of the day, let's say you are making the decision that, okay, here's $12,000 for the next 12 months. I think that you should be providing the list with the cost of each therapist before the parent signs off. Because I've actually done my plan.
It's available.
The list is there on the
And
internet.
you get your package that then tells you, okay, this therapist is $90, this one's $245. So I've now gone, that $12,000 isn't going to meet the needs of all of those different.
Okay, I can answer that for you. Yeah, the prices are actually set by NDIA for what we call registered providers. Providers can have the choice of not registering with us, so therefore they're not going to abide by the rules and stuff that we set in place. One being the pricing. But if you are agency managed, it has to be by a registered provider that's been looked at by us, and they have to agree to the terms of business, which is that pricing. So the prices are actually set. So when you've got that budget, and like say for a therapist, it's $172 and so many cents per hour at the moment. Okay, if you can get a therapist, you've got a budget. So if you get a therapist that will charge $90, that's great. But they can't go over, if they're a registered therapist, a registered provider, they can't go over our cost.
Well, I guess what I was saying, though, I'm not aware of that until afterwards. So someone who has no idea about the cost of anything, and I'm agreeing to a certain amount, later on I'm going to think, oh, hang on, I might need physio every week, occupational therapy every second week, speech once a month.
Would that be something that was discussed though in your draft plan? Once a planner does a plan, and then discusses it with the draft, that's then your opportunity to come back and say, well, hang on, this, I'm not sure about this, not sure about that, before that final plan goes out.
Yeah. And if there's a change of circumstances like you're describing, people do come back mid-plan at times, but what we're looking for there is where's the evidence, what's happened, how was that money used. There's a lot of work that we're doing with the provider sector as well for them to understand what their hourly rate actually covers. So yeah.
Thank you, Di. Okay, folks.
Sorry about that, guys.
No, it's no problem. Most appreciative of the time that you gave us today, and I can imagine there's plenty more questions, but it's fascinating stuff. Just before I ask Tracy and...
Can we just say one thing?
Yep, sure.
Just to support you all, as it gets rolled out, there's many forums that are out there for families, for participants and providers. So if you have the opportunity, I would very much take that up to go and attend those forums to help you about understanding about service agreements and what are you getting, etc.
Yeah, great. As I said, there's just a few things. This room is where we're going to have the dinner tonight, so it'll be cleared. So don't leave any of your valuables, bags or anything in here because it'll be not appropriate. The dental examinations take place immediately after Fiona and Tracy have spoken to you. So there was a list, you've got your name on it, just hang around the creche area and Yvonne will look after you. And the food will actually start to be served at 6:30. So. But before that, in here, I'd ask Tracy and Fiona to come. These are both families who live in Geelong. Both have been involved in using the scheme, and also I'd like to thank each of them for the roles that they've played in this conference. Both of them have been instrumental in the parts they have played, and I'm extremely grateful to the both of you. So really, I'll just ask a couple of questions. I won't keep you too long. The girls will share the microphone. You're welcome. You're welcome to stay. It's up to you.
We'll sit in the front. We can answer anything.
Right to go?
You can get either side.
Yeah.
Stand here. Right. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, okay, right, okay. My far left is Tracy Elmer, Geelong resident, and next to me is Fiona Bell, also Geelong, both registered mothers. Both have been using the NDIS, and I'm out of the loop, so I can't really talk with any expertise. But the first thing I'd like to ask you, Fiona, is what were the pluses for you and your family in the dealings that you've had with the agency?
Pluses. Firstly, I just want to say the planning was completely overwhelming. It's not easy. It was incredibly time consuming. I spent hours and hours and hours at appointments trying to get our plan right. And I know that we hear all the time to paint the worst scenario, but I think to protect yourselves, you need to do a really thorough plan. If you don't know how to write your plan, get support to help you, get the right words in there, because it is very wordy, and even listening to them talk today, I thought, it is just so wordy, it's just twisting words back to front, and I was overwhelmed, completely overwhelmed by it, so just get help and support to do that. That's my biggest...
So that'd sort of be a negative.
Yeah, it is, but I just wanted to get that across, just to do that. But the positives, I think, I feel like after nearly 2 years, I can see the light in the tunnel, and if this works, it's going to be fantastic. And I feel incredibly lucky that, my daughter is younger. We went from early intervention where we had a lot of support. I only had a couple of years in the school system, and I started to feel stressed about some needs that we had. And then the NDIS sort of rolled in. So I was incredibly lucky with that. We had major things that we needed to do to make our home safe and accessible for our daughter. So we had to plan major renovations because this was our, as well as being safe and accessible for Olivia, this is our home. I love entertaining. I'm really, I'm house proud like we all are. So I didn't want my home to look like a hospital. So that was, that was incredibly challenging because I think we were the first family to do such major modifications. So a renovation that was supposed to take 6 months took us 2 years to do.
May I ask how much money was involved in that process, roughly?
Home modifications, God.
Right, yes.
60 to 80,000 probably, and we're still ongoing in our backyard at the moment.
And that's been covered by the scheme?
A lot of it, that's with NDIS, not with everything else we've done for us, but that's a lot of that has been NDIS. So which is incredible, but and it is. You're getting the Mazda if you want the Rolls Royce, you're getting the white tiles in the bathroom, what's reasonable and necessary, and I wanted the tiles with flowers on it. So I paid for that. So that's the understanding that I had as well. So, and it is incredible. We're in our home now and we've got this safe, accessible home for our daughter, but we're still ongoing with our backyard. So, we had, equipment things and that Olivia needed as well. So, I feel incredibly lucky that we were here and we were able to do that. And, when it works, it's going to be fabulous, but there's been a few bumps along the way, and it's, it's getting the basics, getting the planning, talking to the right person. If you don't connect with your planner, find someone that you feel like you can connect with. That's
good. No, you're right. And what about you, Tracy? Did you plus this first off?
I think the major plus for us after years of floundering around in a really insecure financial world when it comes to what we need for Maddie, we were always writing to different organisations pleading for money to help purchase different pieces of equipment. The biggest thing for us is the money is there. If you do your plan right, and if you think ahead about what your child really needs, and you, as Fiona said, if you really take the time to do your plan correctly, you can make sure that whatever it is that you need for your child is going to be there when she needs it. And for us, the financial burden was overwhelming prior to the NDIA. Now we know that the funds are there. If we need something for Maddie, we just need to make sure that, again, it is very wordy. You're having to learn a whole new terminology when you come into this organisation. You can't use the same phrases that you would have prior. Yes, they don't like to hear respite because it's not about us as a parent, it's about the participant. But to have the funds there is just fantastic. To know that we this year got an eye gaze system, $22,000. Now for us to get that in the previous system, we would the letters that I would have had to have sat and wrote, and the meetings that I would have had to have attended, Rotary clubs and things like that, and stand up in front of people and open our lives to strangers, whether it's going to the papers or whatever, and basically pleading poor and requiring people's assistance can be very degrading. And you don't want to think that you have to ask people to help, but you do, you really do. And so to have the funds there is just wonderful. That's just been the best thing for us. Yeah.
Fantastic. And you also had a communication advice as well.
Yes, yeah.
After this morning's talk about IGOs and so forth,
Yeah.
here we have two families that have actually already down that path, and in both situations they were assisted by the scheme, which is, must give you a bit of hope, I think, after what you heard this morning, if you want to go down that path.
And
yeah.
like it's really important too with your therapists as well, that you're talking to your therapist and they're writing the right letters at the right times. They're putting in all the information. So, you know, if your therapist's writing, you know, a letter that's a few sentences, move to someone else. Get someone who's going to write the essay, who's going to, you know, say exactly what your child needs. You know, get them videotaping them on equipment that you need. You know, you have to get all the information behind you. You can't just, you know, do a basic plan and think that that's going to be okay. I have to disagree as well about use it or lose it, because in my experiencing, having not used something, I lost it this year. And even though, you know, we'd had discussions that you wouldn't lose, you know, it was physiotherapy hours, because we'd had, you know, things happen and, we hadn't used all our hours, we did in fact lose them. But it's changed, they've all been put, we were told they're all put into basically a pool and you can access the hours on your overall therapy. But we did effectively lose the hours. So I think just, you really do need to watch it. Like it's my, you know, I feel like it's my fault that I didn't stay on top of it, but but it's okay, I'll get in there and fight for it again if we need it. So you do need to, you know, be aware of what's going on, and I probably haven't been as aware.
That is the thing with people think that with the NDIA that everything's going to be taken care of for you, but it's not. You are the CEO of your child. You still run everything that happens with that child. And you have to be really aware, as Fiona said, of everything that's in your package and that it's meeting all your needs. And if it doesn't, you need to start asking questions and maybe requesting more. There are many reasons with, especially our girls, why we may not use what has been requested in our package for that year. Illness is a big part of it. There's sometimes where I know our daughter has just been so sick that she has just not been able to.
That's a very, very good point, actually.
And I made that very clear to our planner and our LAC, that because Maddie hasn't used it, doesn't mean that we don't need it. There are circumstances that they need to understand with the individuals, that there are reasons why we may have requested it, but we just haven't used it. So don't think that because for this year, that out of the 20 hours that we requested, 10 have been used, that we don't actually need it.
That's well said, how did you find the actual communication between you and the scheme, like in terms of being, if you had a problem, the access was easy to obtain, or were you put on a see you in 3 weeks' time?
Look,
or is it everything is in that initial interview? It can't be sort of...
No. Look, we were really fortunate. We had a planner who had worked with us, with Maddie, since she was 2 years old through Scope. She moved on to NDIA, and she knew Maddie, she knew our family, and she knew exactly what our circumstances were. She was very understanding. Our LAC was exactly the same. Once she got to know us, she realised how individual our circumstances are to her next caseload. And so she was very understanding, and I think you still need to be really quite assertive with these people and let them understand that you've got to steer the ship. That they're there to assist you. So that's how I look at it, is this scheme has been put into place to make my daughter's life easier. So therefore, I'm going to ask for whatever it is that my child needs within, you know, limitations and respects of the financial side of things as well. But it's all guided by your therapist as well. If you've got a really good therapy team, and my suggestion is get your therapy team in place before you do your planning. Know who it is that you want to work with. If it's somebody that you've been with for years and you're happy with them, stick with them. If you're going to change because they're not going to be NDIA providers, start looking around and start finding therapists that you're going to be happy with, because they are going to be the backbone as well of your plan in helping you implement whatever it is that you need for your children. But just remember, you need to still be their voice. You need to guide the planners and the staff as to what your child needs, because everybody is just so different.
Have anything else to say, Fiona?
Bill?
Yes.
Can I just ask?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
These guys, you've both got children, young children under 18. So is there anyone in the Barwon area or businesses here that have had adult children, whether they accept the parents as still the voice, the CEO?
Yeah.
As much. I've heard that they, possibly more with adults with just an intellectual disability, that it's more about them and they don't really listen to the family. But I mean, with our guys, obviously we have to, still be the voice.
Yes.
So
Well,
do you know of other
I certainly do. I bumped into a chap while I was going out for a walk a couple of weeks ago, and I was involved with him when we set up our program in once post school, and I said, look, I don't know much about NDIS and so forth, and I said, how's it been treating you? So his daughter's about 35, 36, I think, and he had no, he said, you can't ask for the earth. He said, there's some things with the house we want to do we couldn't do, but generally, and some big ticket items, voices and so forth, they were satisfied. It didn't seem that I was just amazed, because I thought that it was just manna from heaven sort of thing. But just that one instant, yeah, he spoke very positive about the speech, which was terrific to hear. I was rapt. I said, in fact, it sounds like you've got to put the effort in, but I hope, it sounds like the rewards are there as well.
From our experience, from the one only family that I do know that has a child of age, they have respected the parent as the voice, and obviously they understand that you only need to see the child or see what type of condition that they have, and realise that the parent is going to be the voice of what that participant actually needs. So I don't think you're going to have any problem having the workers accept you and your opinion of what, because after all, we're the ones who know our children the best. Nobody else can tell us what we need. We have therapists that guide us to the best avenues and best, products, equipment, whatever it is that they feel is going to help us in our home, in the daily life, out in the public, at school, whatever it is. But ultimately, it all falls back on us as parents, and I don't think you'll have any problems with them accepting your opinion in place of your daughter.
Yeah, Charlotte. Yeah.
Could I just say something? I think the issue is that those of us who have adult daughters, we don't have easy access to therapists anymore, because you take that for granted while your children are going to school, and it's part of that. Once that we have got into the adult system, that's all disappeared, and it's very different. So we don't have that access to the therapist anymore. We are going to write supporting letters, and I think that's probably where that question came from, because for us it is very different with the adult.
There is a booklet that does come out, and I'm not sure whether you still provide that, it should be on the website, is that correct, of organisations that are participants or providers of services that will help guide you. So whether you want a physio or a speech or an OT, and they'll give you names of different organisations in different areas that have service providers in that regards.
Yeah, but we don't necessarily have funding unless you've got a package that funds those therapists.
Yeah.
That's the problem of the access. Yes, I know who they are, and I know to get them, but not everybody has funds to pay for that, because it doesn't come with the school.
No. See, we found that when we left early childhood intervention, that you go to the school and then you get nothing at home. School provides nothing for home. So all of a sudden, they'll help you at school, but when you come to things that you've got issues at home, where you need, ceiling hoist, or you need a bed, or, whatever the situation is at home, you're on your own and you're paying big money for private therapists. You know, we were paying $220 an hour for a physio to come to our home to assess Maddie's needs. Whereas a year before, you know, she was getting her for nothing through Scope. Yeah, as soon as you go into the school program, school will help you at school. That's it. You get nothing at home. So, yeah, we understand obviously to a degree that that separation of support and the need for it. Once you know, all of a sudden they think because you leave school that you no longer require it. Well, if anything, you actually need it more. You need more support. And that's where I think, you know, this is great with the NDIA, is the support is going to continue no matter what. It doesn't matter whether they're in early intervention or, you know, schooling years, or whether in some sort of work program, you're going to have the support that you need.
All right, Di, you can get to say, have the last word.
Oh, can I?
Excuse me, I must ask a question.
Okay.
And it's really worried me with those two young mothers there. Look, I'm an ageing mother, and my elder daughter and son think that I'm too old now at 73 to care for Louise. So they've taken me to the tribunal, and they've now found a group home for Louise, which seems wonderful at the moment, right? And I will be applying for the NDIS when I go back under circumstances. But what I want to know, and I see these two young mothers there, when they are ageing and they've got the NDIS, has the government put in plan for group homes for these girls to go into to be cared for at that high level? Because there's so many people in the Hunter Valley where I live, where I'm fortunate actually, only because I was taken to the tribunal and was told I had had several personality disorders and I had dementia, that they now, and I don't have any of those things, but the government has moved and said this woman must be free of her daughter. So, you know, it's very complicated, but at the end it may work out very well for us, you know, even though it's painful. But what I see, you know, if these parents age and their daughters are still at home, like I have Louise now, what will happen to their daughters when they leave the planet? You know, will their siblings care for their sister, or what will happen?
That's a really challenging question to answer because everybody's different. One of the things about the scheme, and I've actually got a brother-in-law who's an adult who has a disability as well. So I understand where you're coming from that. I support my 78-year-old mother-in-law with him. The idea for accommodation now, there's a lot more options out there that's happening here in the Barwon. We would say you're an ageing parent and the child is still living with you. It would be that there could be supports put in place to help you, to relieve you of some of the jobs that you're probably doing, you know, for that way. So that can happen like that. We've got situations where instead of children going into homes, you know, or group homes or whatever, we've got situations where families have supported the participant to rent a unit or whatever. Sometimes they've bought the house or the unit for the participant. Then we've put all the care in that's needed for them to be able to live independently. There's so many more options. That has been one of the things that we've brought on, where before any sort of accommodation like that, you went into a government-sponsored, you know, DHS here in Victoria, a house or whatever. It's really opened it up, and that's one of the big areas that NDIA is working with the housing sector and all that to actually widen all those opportunities. We support this, there's so many different ways. Everything is individual, that's the thing about it. But yeah, I would say in that case, if you needed support now, you know, if you're in our area here, that would be looked at. What are your needs? And looking at the needs of the carers so that you can get that support. My mother-in-law is an example. She still showers her 50-something-year-old son, it's my husband's brother. They now get an hour a day of a respite worker or a support worker coming in and actually assisting him with that so that she doesn't have to do that. He lives in a unit now, etc., and the support's going and that he needs them, he can still go out and about to, you know, sort of activities during the day and things like that. It's really hard to answer those questions because it's all individual. In relation to the adults and therapy, that lady that said that, if there's a need for therapy, for physio, OT or whatever for any age, it's there, you know. It may be that we ask for a specialist assessment and we fund a specialist assessment to guide us as to what are the needs. And that's where before I said that it might be that the physio comes out and does the assessment, does the program, then might train the support worker who's coming in every day to help with meals and get somebody to bed. There's so many different ways to that you can use it now. We don't probably have enough time to go through all the different ways of what you can do. But I know that in my particular family situation it is. And can I say to Fiona as well, things have really changed since those early days. The way the plans are written is so much more simple now. It's because of all the feedback that, you know, it's all the listening, the way things are done. The way we have budgets now to increase the flexibility is because of the feedback from families. And that's the good and the bad about being in a trial site. It's here 3 years earlier, but it's about the learnings and why they trialled it out, you know, and things are changing.
Well, I can call it quits, folks. Thank you for your participation.
Parents is the last word.
All right, do you want to... Sorry, okay. No, that's fair enough, but do you have any last words, Fiona, and Trace?
Sorry, what was the last words?
No, I'm just thinking of the last few comments were made about you guys as younger parents and the issues that you might have to think about when you are older. I don't know if you wanted to have a say on that or not.
I haven't jumped all over that one yet.
I don't think that's a fair question.
I don't like thinking too far ahead.
I'm just day by day.
Yeah. You get up and you just deal with what.
It's about now.
Yeah. But one thing that I want you all to know, the funds will be there, but don't think it's going to expedite the process. Okay? You want a standing frame, you want a wheelchair, it's not going to come any quicker. The funds are going to be there.
I think it is. It's the ordering process.
Yeah,
From hearing
not
the other mums that didn't have NDIS, they were waiting years for equipment that I've heard in the breaks. I know, like, we've had to wait, but when we've needed it, it's ordered. And for us, and we hadn't. So we did far, but like I feel, you know, I think I've been lucky, and I sort of feel any equipment that I've needed straight away has been ordered. And it's often because it's coming from America that's taking longer. It's not.
It hasn't changed any of that.
All right. If we want to eat tonight, we've got to go. Ladies, thank you so much.